I am Marko Mihkelson, President of the Estonian American National Council. I'd like to welcome you to our forum on Estonian perspectives on the war in Ukraine. This unprovoked and immoral war has changed our view of the normal in many ways. We have two distinguished guests here to provide their insights on its effects on Estonia. The Council is honored to welcome Estonian Parliament member and Chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee, Marko Mihkelson, and the Ambassador of Estonia to the United States, Kristjan, for this discussion. Topics will include the security of the Baltic region, US-Estonian cooperation, aid to Ukraine and Ukrainians, and the local impacts on Estonia. In addition, Karin Shuey, the Estonian American National Council's Washington, D.C. Director, will be discussing what the Council has done and what it plans to do in support of Ukraine, and how groups and individuals here in the United States can best help. We will end with a brief question and answer session. Please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen if you want to submit a question. Now, a few words of greeting in Estonian. Tere päevast! Olen Marko Mihkelson, Eesti Rahvuskomitee Ühendriikides esimees. Ütlen teile tere tulemast tänasele foorumile, mis käsitleb Ukraina sõja mõju Eestile, tema julgeolekule, Ameerika suhetele ning mõju Eesti rahvale. Meil on au, et Riigikogu liige Marko Mihkelson ja suursaadik Ameerikasse Kristjan on täna siin meiega rääkimas. Samuti räägib Rahvuskomitee Washington, D.C. Director Karin Shuey sellest, mida Rahvuskomitee teeb ja plaanib teha Ukraina heaks ja kuidas teie saate abistada. I would now like to turn the floor over to Mr. Marko Mihkelson, who is returning to Estonia tonight after several intensive days of meetings in Washington. Palun.
Ja, aitäh, et tere päevast ka minu poolt, et väga tore selline kutse saada teie ees olla, et nüüd ma siis, kui tohib, lähen siis üle võõrkeele peale ehk inglise keele peale. Very good afternoon to you all. I am very happy to have this opportunity to discuss with you a very, very important topic for all of us, which is ongoing Russian barbaric aggression against one of the biggest European democracies, Ukraine. And unfortunately, I can say that this war is not only about the future of Ukraine, it's about future of us in Estonia, but us as a democratic and free world. And this is why the utmost importance today is to do everything what it takes diplomatically, politically, militarily to stop Putin's war in Ukraine and stop in a way that Ukraine will prevail and Russia will get its punishment in terms of all those crimes they have already committed in Ukraine. But a few words about those meetings you just mentioned. You know, Estonian foreign policy has been and is and still will be as a missionary work. It never ends. We have to always do as maximum as possible, bolstering our own security, telling our story, and trying to find as much as possible support everywhere. But of course, the United States as the most important ally of us, both bilaterally but also within alliance like NATO, has a very important, of course, impact on how we what kind of perspectives we will have, both in terms of war in Russian war against Ukraine, but also our security in Estonia and perhaps a bit wider in the Baltic area. We had a joint visit of 3 chairs, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, 3 chairs of parliamentary committees of foreign affairs last few days. We had a very interesting public hearing at Helsinki Commission in US Congress Thursday morning, which lasted nearly 2 hours. We had several very interesting questions there, but also we had opportunity to tell to our colleagues, both in person, but also as it was public event for a wider audience as well, what do we need right now, what kind of support and attention, both political and in security terms, we need from Washington. But also we had a full day of meetings on a hill where we met our colleagues both in Senate and in House of Representatives, and the focus of our discussions there with Senators Menendez, Risch, Tester, and Representatives Meeks, McCall, Fitzpatrick, and others, we focused on how to support Ukraine today in their defense or in their war of independence, with the goal that they could win and prevail in this war. And secondly, of course, one of the most important topics was how to make sure that NATO's border is a bright red line for us, and we build our defense and deterrence in a way that Russia will never even make an attempt to attack us or NATO countries. So I feel that from these meetings, and also we had a meetings in Pentagon, in the State Department, had opportunity to discuss very same topics with think tankers in Atlantic Council and in the Brookings Institute. The sort of main takeaway for me was that on Ukraine and generally speaking on security issues, there is a very strong bipartisan support in US Congress. Both Democrats and Republicans understand pretty well what is at stake, and they are very receptive, I must say, today to listen to our needs. Of course, there should be more work to be done to pursue not only Congress members, but most importantly, members of the United States administration, in order to really reinforce US presence, I mean military presence first and foremost in the Baltic states, NATO allies, particularly in Estonia, the United Kingdom, France, Denmark, who put together the Enhanced Forward Presence Battalion. They have done quite a bit already. There is a number of soldiers from named countries has doubled during last several weeks. Same applies to the situation in Lithuania and Latvia as well. But what we do lack at the moment is a more robust presence of the United States north to Suwalki Cap. We know that Americans have increased and reinforced its presence in Poland, Romania, some other countries on the eastern flank of NATO, but not so much in the Baltic states. And if we would like to build more strongly sort of deterrence through denial, then we need Americans' presence in our countries. It doesn't particularly mean that the manpower should be there in terms of soldiers and battalions or even brigades, but we have certain capability gaps what perhaps Americans can help us to fill, like air defense, like MLRS systems, some other specific needs what we need in order to make our defense even more stronger and deterrence more meaningful and visible for Russia. But I hope my knowledge of this kind of meetings goes back last 20 years or so, and I must say that like I said, that I haven't witnessed prior to that the receptiveness as it is, as high as it is in Washington right now. But again, as I said, it's nothing done yet and nothing completed yet. We have to work ongoingly on these topics. And I know that our diplomats and embassy and Kristjan work hard on that. And second part of the war in Ukraine, very few words. Obviously, you follow closely the media here as well. As far as I understand, the TV channels covering war in Ukraine pretty well. It is probably still number one topic in the news, and it is good that it is very much highlighted in US public discussion, because this helps again to build this support, political support on the Hill towards allies as well, and that helps us in the messaging to our US colleagues as well. But what is happening on the ground in Ukraine is that if perhaps we were very thankful, of course, what the Americans did, American intelligence did prior to 24th of February, and during several weeks or even months, telling what might happen and what could happen and what we should be aware of. And this helped definitely to create a very clear-cut narrative: who is aggressor, who is has a defensive war, and there is no doubt about that. And this is also very much due to this that Americans have done a good job on that. But one area where US intelligence wasn't that clear, let's say, and predictive, was that there were not hopes, but let's say calculations that Russian the war machine can roll over Ukraine, capture Kiev within several days or even a few days, displace the political leadership, and Ukraine could be in very dire situation. But nothing like this happened. Today we have already 25th of day of the war, and Ukrainians fighting not only bravely, but very smartly, tactically, and they have been able to cause enormous losses to Russian attackers in terms of how many people, how many soldiers, officers, even generals are killed in action. And Russian forces, actually, they have not so far reached any of their major objectives. But saying this, we should not, of course, underestimate the will of current Russian leadership to go further on, never mind how many people will be killed, both civilians or their own soldiers. One more point, what is always asked, and asked not only perhaps here, but also in Estonia, people are asking, seeing those horrible pictures and footage from Mariupol or Kharkiv or other places in Ukraine where civilians are really badly massacred basically by Russian forces. And the question is why we don't do anything, why West is just sitting and not helping Ukrainians to, let's say, for instance, close the sky or organize this no-fly zone. Then I must say that the solidarity, and not only in words but in real deeds, help is enormously high from allies, partners, not only from NATO countries, but even countries like Finland and Sweden have sent military equipments, weaponry to Ukraine to help them to sustain in much better defensive activity against Russian aggression. And to be honest, the latest decision by Biden administration this week has been also quite significant, and hopefully, if this is going to be implemented as soon as possible, will help. I'm not saying to change a picture on the ground, but help definitely to boost capabilities of Ukrainians to fight better back. And we have to, of course, increase the support to Ukrainians until the moment they are going to win in this war. But on no-fly zone, it is, of course, it is in connection of a major political decision. Do we want to risk the opportunity that we are going to have a direct military conflict, a war with Russia? And this is why, of course, leaders like Biden and others have hesitated to have been, vocally against this option. I would say that we should not perhaps totally exclude the opportunity and possibility of building or creating no-fly zone somewhere in Ukraine. Ukraine is a big country, and maybe we should think about safe zones or humanitarian corridors for that. But definitely the kind of political messaging telling that we are afraid of Russia or we are afraid of going into direct conflict with Russia is not going to be very helpful in terms of the communicating the position to Moscow. Better not to say this publicly, and better focus on how to help Ukraine in their fight for their freedom. But last but not least, I guess we can go through the questions specifically to those topics which are important right now within Estonia, how people feel in regard of ongoing war, and what are the specific themes we address there as politicians. But perhaps we could do it through the Q&A session. I will give now floor to Kristjan.
Thank you. Not only floor, but also computer.
We've had two questions come in as a follow-up. Perhaps we could deal with those and then go on to Kristjan, if you don't mind. One question is, does Estonia have Javelin and other modern weapons?
Yes, Estonia not only have modern weapons like javelins, but we have donated them, some of stocks what we have to Ukrainians. Estonia was probably one of the first countries among allies who already, I guess, was it in December, we announced that we are ready to send a first dispatch to Ukraine. We also offered that time not only javelins but D-30 howitzers, 122 millimeters. But at the beginning they were blocked. The dispatch was blocked because initially those howitzers we got from Germany and Finland, and this is why we needed to get green light from Germany. But as you know, Germany has made quite a major change in their policy as well during this war, and now we have been able to send all what we promised to Ukraine. Actually, amount of military help and not in javelins or howitzers only, personal protective gears and our goes up to $250 million so far. This is roughly 1/3 of our annual defense budget. So it's if to compare, we told to Americans as well here, our colleagues, that if you go as far as Estonia has gone in terms of per capita help to Ukraine, then they have to multiply, of course, their current promises to Ukraine. But yeah, Estonia has, and we also while we donated some of our javelins to Ukraine, we have to fill those stocks now with the help of the United States.
Okay, thank you. We have time for one more question that came in, and then we'll go on to the ambassador. From Martin Vahur, you said deceptiveness from Washington. Please explain.
You know, all these main topics like US presence, military presence, perhaps even permanent presence in the Baltic states, this has been on the table for years, at least since Russia began initially the war against Ukraine in 2014, and always this has been kind of, you know, taken here in Washington, specifically in Pentagon, that oh yes, it is yeah, we understand that your will is behind of those ideas, but we have to see wider picture and how this militarily and operationally goes into the you know suits the plans of Pentagon. Now they understand that at least at the level of politicians and members of Congress, US Congress, that they have to do more, and they have to both invest into Estonia's, Latvia's, Lithuania's defense sector, and this is why we were very thankful that Baltic Security Initiative was adopted. The sums of this year were adopted much higher the level than initially Pentagon offered last autumn. So from initial 105 million, now we have something 180 plus million, and hopefully next year's this level will go up, and that means 180 million for 3 Baltic states. Estonia will get 60 million, and this is quite a decent sum to, or nearly less than 10% of our annual defense budget to top up, allows us to invest into the capabilities together with the United States, which what we need to fill. But today, I hope if we move smartly and our diplomacy works well, and we can pursue the Americans to make further steps in the area, there we can show their presence in the Baltic states, which matters also diplomatically, not only militarily, then this is the right time to do so. And I hope that we are close to it.
Thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you, Mario, and thanks to everyone who joined this conference today. Since we are facing the most serious security crisis in Europe since the end of Second World War, it's very, very timely and topical that we discuss these issues also among the Estonians and friends of Estonia. Now, just as Mr. Chairman mentioned, we have to understand very well that that this current war, this current conflict, is not just about Ukraine. As tragic as it is, as horrible as it is to look at those pictures coming from civilian areas in different cities of Ukraine. It's more than clear now that this war is actually part of a larger design by the Russian leadership, by President Putin, to redraw the maps in Europe and to rearrange the not just even European security order, but now already Russian foreign minister has talked about rearranging the global order. So and we all know that when the global tectonic plates are moving, then particularly smaller countries have to be very alert and have to make sure that no one miscalculates our ability and our resolve to stand up and fight back if necessary. Now, luckily, Estonia is part of the NATO alliance, so this is not just our fight or our crisis that we're talking about, but clearly this is something that has unified NATO to the degree that we haven't seen. I don't know since when. Now, throughout this crisis, I can assure you the relationship between Estonia and the US has been incredibly close and very. We have been very much on the same page when it comes to both assessment of the initial signals, warning signals coming out of Moscow and the borders of Ukraine, but also when it comes to the response to this current crisis, and we have to. And I guess this is not just for the governments, but also for the for every citizen of our countries to understand that we have to move on several fronts, to use this military terms. Firstly, we have to continue supporting Ukraine militarily, politically, and economically, as the West has done thus far. But we have to make sure that there is no exhaustion, or that no one thinks that now we have done our part and let's now see what's come out of that. As Mr. Chairman mentioned, Estonia is probably one of the top providers of military assistance to Ukraine, at least per capita basis. $250 million replacement cost of mostly lethal equipment. This is something that we believe really helps Ukrainians to fight, but this is not all, or we are continually searching for any possible further steps. Now, Estonia, as of this morning, has approved or accepted or received approximately 25,000 Ukrainian refugees to stay in the country, and even more when you consider also the ones who transit Estonia and get some services and support from Estonia. We have provided Ukraine in the course of this year, 2022, in excess of $10 million of humanitarian aid. And in this context, I would particularly also point out that most of this aid has actually come from private groups, private citizens, Rotary clubs, and so on and so forth, joining their forces to get real help to Ukrainians. And we are preparing for ramping up our efforts to treat the Ukrainian wounded from the war, particularly the military personnel. We actually have a long-running program of treating the Ukrainian military casualties or the people who have been wounded in war in Donbas region since 2014 in Estonia. So we are ramping up this program. Now, the second axis, or the second front, certainly is make sure that that Russia, just as Mr. Chairman mentioned it, comes out of this war weakened. Putin must lose as a result of this this war in terms of Russia's stature economically, politically, and militarily. First part of this certainly is also the military aid to Ukraine. Again, we have seen the javelins and other equipment that we've sent them being put in a very good use. Secondly, sanctions. The US and the EU together have sanctioned or introduced a kind of sanctions that really Russian leadership did not expect to see. The core of these sanctions are the sanctions against the Russian central bank. So their government's ability to make any foreign trade is severely decimated. There are certain sectoral sanctions again, and also sanctions against several key officials and their family members. We have also, together with the EU and the US, closed the airspace to Russian flights, making it so very much more difficult for them to even interact with the rest of the world. Now we are also working on some other sanctions to close the ports to Russian cargo and passenger and other vessels. We are also in discussions to close more or sanction more of Russian banks. Also, go after more individuals, and also one of the key issues is how to close to a maximum effect the oil and gas revenues for Russia. In this context, I would also, in the sanction context, I would also emphasize the need, and actually this is not just a need, but there are real steps there to also sanction Belarus as a co-conspirator and as a country that actually is involved in attacking Ukraine. And eventually, the strategy that we have to pursue is, as our Prime Minister Kallas this morning said in CNN, smart containment. This is a long-term fight, and we have to isolate Russia to the maximum degree that we can, so that that as a result of this, they are going to lose out of this conflict. And this third front, but Mr. Chairman already described it quite or very well and in detail, is strengthening NATO, particularly strengthening NATO's eastern flank and the Baltics. I will not go into deep details here, so I'd also be glad to answer any questions that your members may have. Thanks.
Thank you. There's a couple of questions. One is it safe to visit my family in Estonia this summer from the United States?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Estonia is safe and sound, and no worries about that. it's understandable that these questions are, if somebody looks from distance, but no worries.
Just two little data points as an addition to what Mr. Chairman just said. Firstly, Kiev's distance from Tallinn is approximately 850 miles. This is pretty much a similar distance that is between Kiev and Berlin, and we don't hear that kind of questions on Germany. And secondly, when we look at the wider map, then the fact is that Russia has tied her forces in Ukraine to the extent that we have never seen such emptiness when it comes to military forces behind our borders during the 30 years after regaining independence. So there's nothing to fear about going to Estonia.
Thank you. One other question, and that relates to contacting relatives and friends in Russia. One is that, are we going to put them in danger if we contact people in Russia who may be our relatives? That's from Kalev. And the other question concerns what to do about friends and relatives who believe the Putin story about the reasons for the attack. Is there anything we can do about the disinformation that exists?
If I may, to answer to this, this is very interesting question, and I guess there is no sort of one single advice can be given. Their stories can be very different due to the fact that there are different families and different backgrounds and different positions people are in. But I think we should, if there is possibility, and if there are relatives or people we know, we should actually contact them as much as far as they are ready to have these contacts and to listen us, because what is the most tragic episode in modern Russia or current Russia is that people are really like zombies, and with this Z mark means more or less for us that this is country of zombies, and this is very dangerous. Of course, they truly believe the narratives what Kremlin's propaganda has in a very sophisticated way disseminated for years, that there is a major threat from the West who wants to destroy Russian civilization, and they have used Ukraine as a platform for this kind of activity, and this is why they have to now fight back and defend Mother Russia. But and there is of course problem that people don't have access to free media, free discussion, and they happily, sometimes majority of them happily believe to this what Russian propaganda tells. But the possibility to influence their thinking in mass is for us very limited, and sometimes this kind of grassroots level conversations are very valuable.
Thank you. I'd now like to turn the floor over to Karin Shuey, who can talk about what's happening in the United States.
Thanks, Marko. Thank you to Chairman Mihkelson and Ambassador Prikk for teeing up some of the topics that I plan on talking about. And also to everyone, I can't believe there's 176 people on this call right now, and it's great. I'm so glad that so many of you are interested, and I hope that I'll be able to provide some information to help Ukraine and Estonia through this terrible situation, and inspire you to maybe make some phone calls. So let me just bring up Yeah, so this is going to be my report on what we've been doing, but mostly on how you all out there can help us continue doing the work that we've already started. So the first point I want to make is that EANC has been working very closely with our colleagues in the Central and East European Coalition, which is an organization of about 18 groups similar to ours that represent the diaspora communities from throughout Eastern and Central Europe. And also, I think most people are probably familiar with JBank, the Joint Baltic American National Committee. And also we stay in close contact with the Baltic embassies just to make sure that what we are advocating for is in line with the government's priorities. We're all one big cohesive team and we're all supporting each other. So anything in this of the information that I give you, if it looks like it might not belong to EANC, it really does. We're really all working on the same team. So in the last couple months, we came out with a statement on Estonian Independence Day, sort of drawing parallels, the sad parallel between what Ukraine's going through now and what Estonia went through in 1939. Marko and I have been attending rallies also with other Baltic colleagues from the DC area. The ones in DC are billed as national rallies, and they've gotten a lot of press presence and a lot of publicity. So we hope that we're visible there in our support. I did a letter campaign to Congress and the White House as the funding bill was going through a couple weeks ago, and we've been calling House and Senate offices on the same topics. There are calls to action that I'm going to talk about a little more in a bit. And, there have been numerous, I'm sure our Estonian government representatives can attest that Estonians are being asked very frequently to participate and share their views on what's going on in Ukraine right now with the think tank communities and in Congress, as Marko mentioned, the hearing at the Helsinki Commission last week. So we've been supporting and amplifying those things to our communities too. And we really have gotten some success in the form of one of the things we're advocating for, and was in our letters to the White House. We're banning Russian oil imports. And a couple of days after we were getting that message out, President Biden came out and said that the US was banning Russian oil imports. And as Chairman Mihkelson alluded to, aid both to Ukraine and the Baltics ended up increasing significantly just in the last couple of weeks of our making phone calls and writing letters to our elected officials. So, this kind of advocacy really does work, and we're going to continue to do it. And we would really love to ask your help in supporting, because as constituents, your voices are more powerful than mine or Carl Alto's or our colleagues in the other organizations. Elected officials want to hear from you because they want to get your vote in the next election. So the first thing I want to highlight is Baltic Advocacy Days in May. We finally set the date for that, May 2 through 6, and the registration link should be coming out in the next week or so. So we'll definitely get that out to everyone on Facebook, and JBank will certainly be advertising that as well. And that will be one opportunity for you to contact your representatives and senators on whatever issues are sort of most important at the time. Another thing you can do is sign up for the Baltic Call to Action Unit. That's something that looks like it belongs to the American Latvian Association, but it's really not. It's something that they developed, but it's out there for all Baltic Americans and Friends of the Baltics to sign up for. They send out scripts and sample texts about 4 times a year that you can use to send. It makes it really easy to contact your members of Congress, and it will actually tell you who they are too. If you sign up for the unit with your zip code, they make the whole thing very, very automated. So all you have to do is a couple clicks and a little copying and pasting and it's done. We also have sample texts for contacting your members of Congress on our EANC website, which again, with this and the Baltic call to action unit text, you can personalize them to match your views. If you're not sure about the no-fly zone or some, issue that's out there, then you can take that out and just focus on the things that are important to you. The priorities that we're advocating for have been changing. Up until last week, I guess military and humanitarian aid to Ukraine and enhanced air defense, I think, are kind of open-ended until the war ends. But something that came up just last week is that our Ukrainian colleagues are now, their main priority push right now is to designate Russia as a state sponsor of terrorism and to designate Putin and everyone else participating in the war as war criminals. So that's what it was this week. And as the situation evolves, those things are likely to change. And we will keep that up to date on our website so that you guys can just, go to estosite.org, and we're going to have a Help Ukraine tab where all this information will be posted. And then, as I think Marko mentioned, the Baltic Security Initiative, we got a big bump in the last couple of weeks for the fiscal year 2022 allocation. And in the next month or so, the White House should be releasing its budget. And that's when we're going to start advocating for increasing Baltic Security Initiative for 2023. And that's probably going to be one of the main topics for Baltic Advocacy Days. Because as was already mentioned, Estonia is giving its inventory to Ukraine, and they're going to need to backfill what they've been giving away. And that's a really great argument for increasing Baltic Security Initiative funding and the other categories of defense cooperation funding that the Baltic countries get. And then at the state level, you can also, some states have already made some headway towards banning any companies in the state and the state governments from doing business in Russia and Belarus. And then some states are also looking into suspending, I guess, their sister city relationships with Russian cities. So those are some things you can do at the state level as well. So these are just some of the basic messages that can, you can always call your members of Congress about. So the point that US national security starts at borders with the countries bordering Russia. So the defense capabilities to those countries are really important. The Kremlin's agenda is based on lies, and I have a couple links to State Department pages where they spell out like the top 5 Russian lies in the Kremlin's narrative. And all these links are going to be on the last slide that I have here. So you don't worry about taking notes or screenshots. You can always go back to our website and get this information. There's the point about, Estonia needing to restock its inventory. And the fact is that we have had over 100 years of great relationships between the US and Estonia. This year actually is the 100th anniversary of official diplomatic relations. And that's something that the State Department and the embassies in the Baltics are going to be celebrating this year. And we'll put more information about that as it comes out too. And then you can always ask your senators and representatives to join the Baltic Caucus if they haven't already, or thank them if they do. And I have links on my last slide as well about how to check that list to see if they're on it. So as far as participating, definitely go to rallies and coordinate with the other local communities from the region. Wave your Estonian flag, and down in the rallies in DC, my Estonian flag has really gotten some attention, and I've been approached by some of the media outlets that are down there covering it, asking, why are you here supporting Ukraine? And so it's just a good idea to be prepared just in case someone comes up to you and asks that question. And then there are several, again, places where you can look for information to stay informed. JBank and EANC were both pretty active on Facebook, forwarding the latest news that comes out to make sure everybody, gets reliable information and stays up to date on any events that that might be of interest for staying on top of the Baltic perspective, especially on what's going on in Ukraine. And when you do all of these things, if you're talking to your friends or writing to your local paper, these are some of the things you can do to share on a local level, speaking at local meetings of different groups you might participate in. And we're always here to support you if you want to do some sort of public speaking or engagement. We can always provide, you can always go back and look at the sample text that we provide on our website, or let us know if you'd rather have somebody else, speak about these issues at a group that you might be involved in. And then we always ask that you let EANC know when you do this so that we can follow up, especially for me, with any meetings with Congress that you have, so I can follow up with those offices on my end. But we also want to get the word out on our website and in Babaeski Sina about everything that you guys are doing out there to help support Ukraine. So please don't be shy about just writing up a little paragraph and submitting some photos of the events that you participate in. And then as far as donations, I know that's a big question that a lot of people have. EANC and the Estonian World Council have already donated to our sister organization, the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America, which, that's my Ukrainian colleague that in the Central and East European Coalition. That's who, they have very good connections in Ukraine. And so we chose to support them. So EANC and the Estonian World Council have both donated to that. EANC, for up until we reach a total of 10,000 donations, we're going to match those donations. If you submit your donation on our website at that link, or send in a check, if you note in your donation that it is for Ukraine, then EANC will match it and send it to the UCCA as well. And then another option is the Estonian Relief Committee, which has already donated $11,000 to the Estonian Red Cross Relief Fund for Ukraine, and they'll continue to accept tax-deductible donations at the link there. And then, we know there are lots of other reliable charities doing great work that I think there's lots of information about that too, but these are sort of the Estonian specific ones to consider. And then here's the list of all the links that are out there to help make sure you get the right information and to help facilitate your participation in contacting your elected officials. All the way down at the bottom is my email address if you have any questions, or do have a meeting or want to have a meeting with your members of Congress. Just please don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I can certainly help you do that with all the resources that we have. So I hope that helps. And yeah, thanks again for tuning in.
Thank you very much, Karin. We've had a number of questions and comments come in during the last hour. Let me start with one that pertains to the Russian population in Estonia. This is from Ago, who's currently in Estonia. What problems do you foresee, especially on May 9th, when large numbers turn out to march to the Bronze Soldier in Kaitseväe Kalmistu? And then there's another question regarding what are the thoughts and the poolehoid, I'm sorry, in Estonian, of the Russians in Estonia. Whom are they supporting? And I'll
if I may to start, Kristjan can follow up. This is very natural question, of course, and has been a sensitive issue not only during last several weeks, but since very beginning of 90s. And the reason why I'm saying is it's not because of just we have a sizable number of people who have close contact with Russia, or they are Russian speaking but because Russia has seen them as a active tool in their foreign policy, and this has been the case throughout those 30 years, and not only in Estonia. We see a very similar sort of way they have used Russian community wherever they live. Lately, we saw a demonstration even in Australia in support of Putin's war in Ukraine. So we have to be careful, and we have been able actually throughout these 30 years create relatively, let's say, good relations within society. The most tense situation, as you can recall, was 15 years ago in 2007 during drone soldier situation. But ever since, actually, we have not witnessed any major sort of crisis or rapid growth of tensions, even in 2014. I remember when that time I also went to several schools and met people in Narva and Kohtla-Järve and Tallinn, spoke with them directly and asked about their position. Yes, they supported Putin. They lived, and still majority of them live under the influence of Russian propaganda. But at the same time, they are receptive and they listen carefully if you go and meet them directly and debate or discuss with them. On 9th of May, I would like to see our counterintelligence sort of work in a way to see and predict what might be sort of scenarios around it that day. Of course, we have to be careful. We don't know in what stage at that time is a war in Ukraine and how that could affect everything. But definitely, this is something where we have to pay attention to. Okay. And in perhaps to add up, maybe not everybody know yet this, that in Estonia a few weeks ago we stopped all Russian TV channels to be broadcasted in cable networks. Nowadays, there is no possibility in Estonia for Russians to freely follow the Putin's line. So it's, but we haven't seen any demonstrations on the streets. People are not demanding their channels back, and the Estonian broadcasting channel ETV Plus, which was launched in 2015 in Russian, works pretty well, and actually their popularity is growing.
Great. Thank you. Next question. What are the economic repercussions of the conflict in Estonia? Will this have an impact on Estonia's business climate? This is from Carl in Chicago. And also a related question about Nord Stream 2. Will that ever come into play and be used? And that is from Gilda in Chicago.
On Nord Stream 2, it's easy to say right now. It's at least until Putin is in office, this pipeline won't go live. But there is another pipeline, Nord Stream 1, and we have to pay attention to this as well, because that is still supplying natural gas to Germany, which is heavily dependent on Russian fossil fuels, specifically natural gas. This is another entire topic. How do we in Europe should actually escape immediately dependency from Russian fossil fuels, and there are actually plans how to go finally in that direction to lessen the possibility that Russia can influence through energy certain capitals like Germany, Italy, Hungary, and so on and so forth. Also in Estonia, we have to invest, in my better understanding, into LNG terminal in order to also get rid of dependency from Russian natural gas, what we consume right now. But the share in our energy portfolio, the natural gas is very small, but around 10% or so. But on the first question, economic impact, Estonia's foreign trade with Russia is very limited. We from all exports, only 2% goes to Russia, and from imports, roughly 4-5%. So direct impact is very limited. What could be more serious is actually, and this reflects your question, the first question, do you need to buy tickets to travel to Estonia, is a question what kind of perception is about Estonia. Is Estonia sort of war zone or in danger? And if not, or not, and this can be more serious sort of to make an influence on our sort of economic or business climate. So far, we have not seen any sort of immediate negative impact.
In fact, if I may, just to add something to here, I guess the impact and the attitudes of purely Western companies remain to be seen yet. But what we've already witnessed is that Western companies that have actually had some of their personnel working in Russia, software developers, accountants, whoever, they are actively seeking to find new ways how to operate, and they are viewing the countries that are close to Russia as the most natural part or the most natural area or region where to actually relocate their businesses. So we may be seeing some new companies coming to our region, or existing companies being expanded. Of course, with this, I think we have to be very careful about what kind of business and what kind of companies we really want to accept, and we certainly don't want to prosper at the expense of Ukrainians, so to say, because also many Western companies had their personnel working from Ukraine, and we certainly would like to see them working from Ukraine also in the future.
Thank you. We have a suggestion from Claudia Evert in terms of what we could do in the United States. Is there a possibility to initiate a human peace chain, as the Baltic states did successfully in 1991 during the Cold War? That actually, I guess that pertains to the Baltic countries as well, human peace chain, again, to demonstrate for Ukraine, but certainly we've done it here in the United States too, in various localities. So that is merely a suggestion for everyone to consider. I'm looking at the time, and we have gone over our hour limit. I know that the chairman needs to go on a plane. So at this point, I'm afraid that we have run out of time. I would like to thank Chairman Mihkelson and Ambassador Prikk very much for taking the time to join us. I think there's been a lot of interest in what you've had to say, we had a very short time to publicize this, and we're very happy that all of you I think we probably had over 200 people, because some people were sharing screens from one location, that we've had so many people listening in. So again, thank you. All the best for what you do for Estonia, and we hope to be in contact in the future. Aitäh, suur tänu.
Thank you very much. Suur aitäh.
Thank you, Marju, and all of your colleagues. Thanks.